Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners, and I'll ask you to join me in state the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to, we have a lot of people here to speak, and we're going to be asking them to speak at the podium. So, I know we didn't really...
There's people outside in the hall, and I don't think they're gonna be able to hear.
How many people are out there, Bobby?
We're fine. We're okay.
You sure? Oh, I want the baby, you can stand over here, I'll take the baby. I'll take him, come over here. Well, if they want, they can stand behind here, that's fine. Aww.
These chairs in front, these chairs in the back.
Okay,
You're at Maritime, yes. You're getting everywhere. You're going everywhere.
This baby's been at a chamber of this baby's been at a Maritime, this baby's got more than you wrote.
Hopefully we won't be in your way, is it okay?
You don't make an excuse because I have a child.
Susan. Mary, you want to sit down here?
No.
Anyone? You want?
Thank you so much.
okay, we're going to get started here. We will open with oral communications. Oral communications, the public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary, which is the young lady over there waving her hand. For the recording, the school committee chair shall not allow complaints as to individual performance or character. So I'll open this to oral communications. What I would like everybody to do is state their name and their address for the record. And you'll have 3 minutes. So how many people intend to speak? Good, great. And we've received a number of communications which will be entered into the record as well. So if you've sent a letter to us, it will go in the record. Okay? Sir. Thank you.
My name is Elmer Magana, and I'm from 19th Dutch Street. And pretty much like Madam Mayor, school committee members, neighbors, students, fellow Bostonians, I'm here to express my opposition to the building of the elementary school in our Green Street Park. My son Mateo is 8. He learned how to play basketball and baseball in our park. And this fall he's going to be playing fisherman football, and really looking forward to it. You know, my backyard is not that big. We have no space for these activities, so therefore we use our park, which is one of the reasons why we bought the house. One of the reasons why the real estate said, you know what, this is a good spot. You're right in the middle where the park is. So we were very happy about it. It's, you know, my son with his friends, they'd rather be outside instead of playing video games in the basement. So we truly use this park a lot. we don't take it for granted at all, you know. And we keep on overdeveloping in the same spot. You know, we have the trains passing at 5 a.m., Gloucester crossing trucks going into Market Basket at the same time. We have the wind turbines. And now we have like foxes and coyotes walking around because we go happy-go-lucky chopping down trees. And it's like the one slip from the Lorax. And now we have the YMCA, which, you know, my son loves the YMCA too, though. However, you know, like, we know that we, as a town, as a school committee, as a Madam Mayor, we had the chance to build a school on Fuller School. However, you know, we chose to make a penny and sell it. And I don't know how, you know, safe or healthy it is to build a school like 100 yards away when supposedly there was asbestos contamination. So that's just, I think it's ludicrous. And lastly, I was saying, you know, so please, you know, just build a 3 to 4 floor school in Veteran. You know, like other towns do that. It doesn't have to be a 1-floor school. It could be 3 floors, 4 floors, and you know, it will hold all the students, whether it's in Veterans or in the old East Gloucester. And we know we have the resources. We know we can do it. You know, so please, you know, keep our park, because the park's not going anywhere. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, school committee members, Mayor Taken, Dr. Sapphire for listening to us. My name is Caitlin Pizzeni, and my husband and I live at 30 Dodge Street. We just moved really far away from 27 Dodge Street. We still own both of the, still own 27 Dodge Street, so we now abut Green Street Park 2 times over. We've lived there for 9 years. We love our neighborhood and our neighbors. We love that we have a park in our backyard. I'm writing and speaking today to strongly oppose Green Street Field and playground being considered as a possible location for the consolidated school. As a neighborhood, specifically our neighborhood, but all of Ward 2, we've been disproportionately developed in the past 10 years in Gloucester Crossing and now the Fuller School project. I wake up to construction every morning. This is our last green space in our densely populated neighborhood. I have a master's in public health and urban health. I used to work for the schools and I used to work in public health for the city. I know how important parks and green space are for the overall health of our community and our individuals. It's not just that I know, it's in literature, it's in research. I've included some research for you, cited some articles that I'm going to submit. And it's not just about losing a playground or fields, it's about losing trees, it's about wildlife being displaced, it's about increased litter, noise pollution, light pollution, noise pollution, light pollution, increased 18-wheeler and vehicle pollution that we've had since these things have been developed. And as I mentioned, green spaces are truly valuable for the health and well-being of a community. Trees help reduce air pollution and noise pollution. There's cited research on this. They help reduce cooling and heating energy use, so it's actually helping the environment by having these green spaces. Green spaces and trees lead to improved general mood and attitude, stress reduction, which is such a high number that there's a 50% higher odds of experiencing stress and harmful effects of stress for those living more than more than 1 kilometer away from a green space, which if you take this space away from us, we will all live more than that away from one. There's also better mental health and functioning, improved mindfulness and creativity, and it builds social capital. So having a green space improves the overall health and well-being of a community. We need this space. We fully believe that we can find a better option than using Green Street Field and Park to build this new elementary school. We know we can find other options, and we would really appreciate it as a collective, not just as a single person, if this can be reconsidered as a site and be dropped off the list. We are voting constituents, and we urge you to listen to our concerns. We actually have 65 signatures on a petition that we gathered just within the last couple days. There's more coming in. Within 2 days, we had 50 people attend just a small neighborhood meeting. This is something very important to not just me, not just to the people here, but many, many, many neighbors in this area. Dodge Street, Trask Street, Green Street, Ledgemont, and all of the surrounding streets will be impacted by traffic, noise, litter, and it's just not a safe space for the students to be in to begin with. So, thank you.
I have 40 to add to that.
And 40 more, so over 100 signatures.
41.
So I would like to officially submit this, as well as some information and facts from validated sources. If anyone has any questions about the research, I'm happy to answer it. Like I said, I'm actually an expert in this field, so.
Good job.
If I go next, just in case I have a melting baby.
Any one of us will hold.
I'll put that
You
baby.
know that.
She is 3 months and a couple weeks.
She's famous too, she was on the paper.
Whoa! That's right. She was the first baby in North Shore. So my wife and I have lived, my wife is Clayton Kern, 28 Green Street. My wife and I have lived all around the country, from California, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, Maine, Connecticut, and Michigan. And of all these beautiful places, we decided to settle and buy our first home in Gloucester for many reasons. Among those are the access to public land, the ocean, and all of its wonderful people. My wife and I are both scientists and biologists, and we understand and have read lots of research about how important green space and forests are to growing up children and adults at the same time. So we were very alarmed when we heard about the Green Street proposal, particularly because we live on Green Street. And this is also the last remaining forest in downtown Gloucester, as most of you guys know. And many citizens that I've met around town have actually chosen not to have cars. It's one thing I like about living in Gloucester is that I can pretty much ride my bike or walk almost everywhere. And for those that have made that decision, this is one of the few places where they can go and actually see trees and build forts and just have a good time out in green space. So after we lost the Gloucester Crossings space, all that forest, this is really the last remaining bastion of forest in downtown Gloucester. So we're really concerned about that, the potential decreased property value, increased traffic, loss of wildlife habitat, as well as just the unfair amount of development in our area. I don't know why that is, but hopefully it doesn't have anything to do with the lower income neighborhood. But anyway, that's that. Thank you.
Good job.
Pass it over to, Henry.
I'll talk next if nobody's.
Go right ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald Moody. My wife and I purchased 17 Dodge Street in 1995. We're about 3 years away from paying off our mortgage. Our house abuts Green Street Park. When we go out on our second floor deck, we look out there and really enjoy seeing the sports. And our children grew up playing out there, as I'm sure many future children would like to use the playground and go sledding out there. And I oppose the building of a school there. I think the green space is important. I think that the trees are very important not to lose. A lot of trees have been lost up in that area. Someone at the last meeting I went to told me that they believed that the park was actually built to a certain degree on a former swamp, which makes me wonder what they're gonna dig up when they start to wanna make foundations, if they get to do that. I'm going on 68 and I'd like to retire at the home I've spent since 1995 paying for and not watch the first 5 years of my retirement go into noise and building construction and buildings to block my view of the sunrise. So it's my personal lot is 50 by 100 feet. About half of that lot is taken up by our house. So I have 25 by 50 feet to have a pet in or go out and I have a couple apple trees, and right behind me it's the power lines that go up to Gloucester Engineering. So we try to stay out of that little 100-foot wide stretch of woods, which would be right next to the school if it went through. So I agree that all of a sudden it would get very crowded with the buildings. I was told that a parking lot, I'd be looking out at a parking lot full of cars every day, right on the other side of the high tension wires that go through there. So it's a very unpleasant perspective for me. I happen to be Mr. Elmer's neighbor. Elmer and I live next door to each other there, and I think I probably got the idea across that my wife and I are against it, so thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to us. We do appreciate it. My name is Shirley Lake. I live at 11 Green Street. I've lived there for 18 years. We purchased our house the same reason other people did. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful neighborhood that's very close-knit. Dead-end street, which is difficult to find in central Gloucester, that didn't have a lot of surrounding retail, commercial, industrial space, which, again, I'm not gonna touch on the same thing everyone else has, but to summarize, we got Gloucester Crossing in our backyard. The Fuller development is going forward, and the turbines are pretty much in our backyard. You look at them, you hear them.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. But since everyone else has discussed the impact and the green space and everything else, one of the other things that really hasn't been touched on here is athletics for children. There are a very limited amount of space. Being a team mother for almost every team my son has been on, he was born on Green Street, played t-ball, basketball, baseball on Green Street parks. But the problem being, we're eliminating all of our parks. Fuller used to be a field that people could use for practices, for soccer, whatever. That's gone, obviously. The high school field is used for the high school. Burnham's Field is used for high school teams. So Little League teams have a limited amount of time they can practice and places they can practice. We practice in East Gloucester with grass up to our hips, behind where Earl Eunice lives. I don't even know what the name of that park is. Yes, and it was ridiculous. I mean, these kids need to be outside. Obesity is on the rise. Diabetes is on the rise. I mean, I understand that education is very, very important, but personally, I think the personnel teaching our children are much more important than the space they're in. But that's a whole other subject. We're actually taking away all of the areas our kids can play in and learn and be friends and learn lasting lessons of entertaining yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, social media is such an issue, and PlayStation and all of these things. We want our children to be outside. And we went to several meetings for Green Street when we got a grant to improve the park and the field. And there was minimal improvement to the playground. The court's still cracked. Our benches were taken to Ledgemont, and we got other smaller benches, and nothing was done to the park. So I'm a little dismayed. I mean, we had all these plans, we had kids with their input, and nothing has been done with that, and now we're finding out there may be another building, which leaves us nothing. I mean, as people have said, their backyards are tiny. It's a very close community up there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have extremely limited space to live in. So I would really vehemently oppose another building going up in our neighborhood. And we got a mall, people, please. We're getting the Y, which is wonderful. But there's also housing and retail to go with that. So it's gonna double, at least double, the traffic, the foot traffic, the litter. We clean the park. The community gets together and we clean the park. I mean, enough, really. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. My name is Tracy O'Neill. Thank you, city councilor, school committee members, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the chance to be heard. I am strongly opposed to the development of Green Street Park. My kids are grown. I live on 12 French Street, so I don't abut Green Street Park, but my kids played there. The importance of unsupervised recreation is very important. I mean, football practice and soccer practice, that's important, but the chance for children to just go into the forest, if you've ever hunted for pollywogs and toads, come on, you guys, I know you have. And you're taking it away from that baby that just, where's the baby? That baby's not gonna be able to venture into the forest and pick up a toad or see the pollywogs swimming in a little pond. Once it's gone, it's never coming back. I want to read something. There's a plaque at Green Street Park that says the playground is dedicated to Nancy Dosset under public law. Janine Dosset? Sorry, I apologize. I'm a little nervous, so. But it's dedicated under public law 95-625. I just want to read section 1002 from that law. The Congress finds, this is quoted, I gotta print it out. Congress finds that A, the quality of life in urban areas is closely related to the availability of fully functional park and recreation systems, including land, facilities, and service programs. B, residents of cities need close-to-home recreational opportunities that are adequate to specialized urban demands, with parks and facilities properly located, developed, and well-maintained. C, the greatest recreational deficiencies with respect to land, facilities, and programs are found in many large cities, especially at the neighborhood level. D, inadequate financing of urban recreation programs due to fiscal difficulties in many large cities has led to the deterioration of facilities, non-availability of recreational services, and an inability to adapt recreational programs to changing circumstances. And E, there is no existing federal assistance program which fully addresses the needs for physical rehabilitation and revitalization of these park and recreation systems. So this is Congress. Congress recognizes the quality of life is closely related to the availability of fully functional park and recreation systems. Congress realizes that residents need close-to-home recreational opportunities. This is Congress, I mean, so that's that part of me. The other thing is I've spoken with a bunch of people. Are you Ken Head?
I am.
Okay, I've spoken with you on the phone. I've spoken with someone else, a couple other school committee members, and what I've been told is that there's no money. The money we're getting for this new developments coming from Massachusetts Schools Board Association or something? I'm not sure. I could have that wrong.
At the end of the oral communications, I will give whatever information we have of where we are.
All right, so I did a 10-minute Google search.
Yeah.
And I found an proposed EPA program would give $50 million boost to children's health. So there's a $50 million grant. I know my time is probably close to up or up. But there's a $50 million grant out there from the EPA. It took me 10 minutes to find it. So there's money to be had. Maybe we're not looking in the right place. Maybe we need to go to the federal government. Maybe we need to go to the EPA. Maybe we need to be creative. We can do this. We don't need to take the forest away from the children. They need that playtime. They need to pick up dirt and mud. And they really do. We all had it. You guys can't look at me and say you never walked through the forest and, well, maybe you didn't pick up pollywogs and frogs and toads and snakes. But children need that. It's nature. It's part of our environment. It's the land we live in. So thank you very much for hearing me.
School committee, Dr. Sapphire, Madam Mayor,
Councilors. My name is Beth Brow. I'm representing my husband Peter and we live at 9 Dodge Street with my daughter. I wanted to thank the school committee for the work that they do. Can't believe it's not an easy job you guys have. But I am here to express my concern, our concern over the possible use of Green Street Park for East Gloucester School Project. And when I say the park, I mean the playground, the fields, and the wooded area. Ward 2, Precinct 1 is a high residential density area. It's taken the brunt of new development with Gloucester Crossing and its continuation of development with the FMUV, which will have the YMCA, 200 apartments, and new retail. There's also going to be the possible building of the assisted living still on the table. All this new development does benefit the city, but all of these come with increased population, and none of them have used any design of open space. So Green Street Park is the last open space of Ward 2 Precinct 1, and this project could possibly see 100% of that space. Open space is essential to the health and quality of the neighborhood. It's used by all the abutters, the local team sports, Little League football, cheerleading, I hear them all the time. Spontaneous games, the kids jumping on the rocks, hikers, biking, learning how to ride your bike back there. Lots of youth play. It is also a natural habitat to eastern screech owls, turkeys, coyotes, fox, rabbits, all different types. West Parish was an example of the city using smart development. It kept the zoning and usage intact. When we move to a new site, what will become the 2 old buildings? I ask you to see the impact on the community here and look further into options that can be put back on the table or for Dor Whittier to review. Helping both the community and the children may mean not taking the most expedient route. Please don't take this last open space of Ward 2 Precinct 1. Thank you for that.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for listening to us. My name is Sean Gadbois. I reside at 2R Green Street. My property abuts the basketball court, so I see everything that happens there on a daily basis. Not only do I agree with everybody on their points that they've brought up tonight, but also there are the people that aren't in the academic, the flag football people that come up there, the golfers that go out there, the dog walkers. It's not just a neighborhood thing, it's all of Cape Ann. People come from everywhere to use our park. It's been dedicated twice over, once in '87 and once in '92 to Nancy Dowsett. There's been plenty of federal funding that's been acquired to the park. And I've also done research on similar situations that the National Audubon Parks and Recreation Division, that the plaque specifically states on there, is the park is protected under their rules and regulations, which somebody had already brought up. I believe also that doing this, you need to go before the Secretary of Interior to get their permission. There's been 2 situations in the state of Massachusetts that this same scenario has come up. Once in Ipswich just recently with Violet Park, and once with Westfield Park, Cross Street Park in Westfield. And in that situation, it went before the Supreme Judicial Court, which was shot down by them building a school there. Again, I oppose this strongly. I think there are much better issues, much better options for us to think of, and you'd be doing not only the neighborhood devastation, but you'd be hurting the community of a treasure that we all enjoy very, very much. Thank you.
Hi, Mary Ann Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue in East Gloucester. I basically have been following this since day one. And I just wanted to get up and say that we live in a society today that teaches our young in school every day to recycle, to repurpose, and to conserve. We teach our children to save our earth. And here we are doing just the opposite. First, it was going to be done in the Pines in East Gloucester. And we came before this board and we asked, please don't take away our green space. And now it's happening here with your green space. I read this at a Ward 1 meeting that we had right after our initial neighborhood meeting. And I wanted to find out, because this is about building a school, I wanted to find out what makes a really good school. So I started to do some research, and I found an elementary school in New Jersey. And they're 97% proficient in reading and 92% proficient in math. So I decided to call them and ask them. And I picked up the phone and I asked the woman who answered, the secretary, what makes your school an A+ school? And the secretary was quite nice, and we chatted for some time, and I told her that I found her school well online, doing a bit of research. And I asked, what makes your school get an A+? Her immediate response was our staff and our parents. She told me that they work hard with the students, and then I asked her, well, what does your school look like? I didn't get the answer that I had expected, as the average home in that area sells for $1.2 million. She chuckled and said, oh, our school? Well, we just celebrated our 75th anniversary. We had quite a large gathering, and we invited all the alumni back with anyone else who wanted to attend. It was a huge success. So many remember either the teaching in a particular classroom or attending class in another. Don't let us fool you, she said. Our floors creak. We have the same woodwork since the school was first built, but it was very well maintained, something that our city does not do. We're here because we have to face it. We don't take care of our schools. We just don't. This was all I needed to hear. I then explained to her why I called. She was wonderful, and she understood. And I thanked her, and she offered me a good luck, and I hope it all works out. See, I asked people, I've asked a lot of people, what do you remember about your elementary school? Not one person could tell me about the walls, the floors, the ceilings, or the exterior. What they told me about was their friends, their students, their fellow students, their teachers. I stood before the school committee 35 years ago when Al Sweckler and Al Combati were on the board. And I said, I lived next to East Gloucester Elementary School. My daughter lives there now. So I've watched that school for 58 of my 59 years. And I asked them, why are we letting these schools fall to the ground? And Ab Combati looked at me and he said, Mary Ann, we can teach in a tent. And I was angry. I was very, very angry with him. He said, we do not need the grand facade that we have over at West Parish. I walk in that building and that grand entrance is beautiful. But why do we need that grand entrance? To teach our children. We don't. And I just want to say that I know that we're all trying and you're all trying to do the best for the children, but I think you need to forget about these beautiful green spaces and let it go back to renovating what we have.
Anyone else? Council Head?
Is everyone else done? I just wanted to invite, well, thanks for coming out. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're passionately making your voice heard. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I want to invite everybody to a Ward 2 Ward meeting, if you hadn't heard of it, on April 29th, which is a Monday. That's at 6 p.m. Please come. We're going to hopefully, I think this school committee is working to have some good information there on the site selection process and that sort of thing, bring everybody up to speed on that. We're also going to be talking about the sewer project that's going to be going right through the heart of Port Edie Hill. So we'll hopefully have someone from the DPW, or I will get educated enough at that point. There's not a lot of information available yet, so we can go over that. We're also going to be discussing the request I made to the city for a budget of $35,000 for security cameras at Burnham's Field, the other 6.5 acres of green space we have in Ward 2. And the new police chief is going to be coming. So if you haven't met Chief Conley, he's going to be there, and you'll be able to meet him and ask questions and that sort of thing. So it's going to be a full agenda. Beth, if you don't mind, you're already collecting email addresses and such. Does everyone know Beth?
Yes.
Okay, so Beth is creating her database of the neighborhood, and she's sending to me that database so I can use it to communicate with you. So if you wouldn't mind, this is your best accumulator. That way she gets to use it for her purposes, and she'll transfer to me, and then I can communicate also. And thank you. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I hope to see you on the 29th of April.
It's at City Hall,
6 o'clock
right?
at City Hall, in the big auditorium. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out. It's very important for us to hear your concerns and your opinions. And I would like to just say, the process is not clear to people out there. The way it works is MSBA requires us to look at many different options. Right now, I got more information tonight about the status of Green Street than I've been able to get from the city since we started this process. We're doing, in the process right now of getting title searches to find out, as was pointed out, whether there's clear title to this property. We don't know that yet, and what I heard tonight is there may not be. So, and that would change everything. But we have to look, we have to investigate. It's our obligation to the city to look at all the possibilities. And when the decision is made, it will be made based on data. There is a checklist of about 35 different factors for every site. And those factors will include whether there's room for parking, whether there's drainage, whether there's utilities, whether there's going to be room for playgrounds, whether there's going to be room for playing fields. It's a complicated process, but we have not even started that because we don't know if we have clear title. There's problems with the title of all the sites. There's Meadows Field at Veterans. We don't know whether we could, if we would try to stay at Veterans, whether we would be able to use that field. And once again, that's loss of another field. It's an issue. I mean,
So at Veterans, we'll lose the field if it was at Veterans.
to get a school the size that we need to, yeah,
We can't build up?
you can build up. You still got to park 100 cars too. There's rules that we have to follow. If the city wanted to just pay for it on its own, we could do whatever we wanted. But the state, listen, I can try to explain this to you where we are, or you can talk about 8 years ago or 10 years ago. We're where we are right now. And but we don't have, if we have clear title at East Gloucester site, because half of that is a playground, as is Green Street. Right now, in the process of just trying to find out whether any of these sites, whether the city has clear title to them, and we're not even there. We're not to that point.
So no time frame for that?
We've been told we will have the title searches done by April 15th, which will be before Councilor Heck's ward meeting, and we'll be able to report out on that. The second thing I want to say is that the school committee is not the committee that's making these decisions. It's the building committee, the school building committee. Now, granted, Kathy, myself, Gary, and Rich all sit on the school building committee, but it's not this committee. This committee will vote, at some point, they'll vote up or down, but the decision, the research is all, is all going through the school building committee, which has 17 members. There's a representative, the principals of both East Gloucester and Veterans are on it. the CFO of the city, Greg Cadamatori from the planning department, Ryan Marks from the engineering department, Joe Lucido is on. These are the people that are going to be directing and evaluating the sites. This committee will, and grandparents and contractors are also on it. There's,
Has Green Street been established as a viable site to build?
No.
So we're not even there yet?
We're looking to see if we own it. Clear. We don't know that yet.
But from a building perspective?
We're not going to, the designers are not gonna go and do geotechnical survey until they know whether they own it.
Okay.
They're not gonna spend the money. So that's where we're at in this process.
Yeah.
So that's, we're looking at all three of these sites. If none of them work out, we'll have to try to find another site. But the other problem is that, and we'll do a presentation at Councilor Heck's, Dora and Whittier will be there. And they'll do a presentation on really what is required by MSBA. And essentially, to build a school that would house East Gloucester the way it is now, with no same number of kids, it would have to be almost half again as big to meet current zoning, and not zoning, but building and educational. So those are things that we're trying to deal with. We're wrestling with all this stuff. It's not easy. I understand, and I believe everybody else understands, that the loss of green space is important. And we're talking, but we need to build a school. That's what we are trying to do. And I don't care if it's, we want to build a school. We need a place to build it. So we have to look at all of these sites.
Is veterans still being looked at?
Yes.
You were just saying we need 100 parking spaces, but everybody who needs extra space builds a parking garage. They build 3.
MSBA requires that we look at all the sites.
But that's one of the sites.
Even if at first glance it doesn't seem feasible, they still require that we have the designers go in and do all of the research and come back and present, maybe it's the reason why it's not viable, but they still have to report out on it. They'll have to do that with East Gloucester also.
Okay, thank you.
Tracy?
I've been told everything from, this is years out, so don't worry about it, to it's a done deal. So I'm trying to figure out.
Well, the process is, we are in feasibility with MSBA. The city has appropriated $1 million that we're spending to do this research on where to build a school and to do a preliminary schematic design. That would then get sent to MSBA. MSBA would have to sign off of it, and then if it was a viable, then it would have to go to the city to vote and override to pay for it.
No, a debt exclusion which the voters get a chance to vote on.
All right.
I'm not doing an override. It's a debt exclusion which everyone gets to vote on if they want.
Okay. So all I'm saying is there's no done deal here. That we're so far from any kind of done deal that, and like I said, we don't even know whether we own these properties clear enough to go out and drill a hole in the ground to see whether there's what's down there.
Jonathan, the fact is, we own it.
We own it.
We're the owners of it.
Right.
We don't want you to, that's the time. You don't have to see whether you own it or whether or not City Hall owns it. We're the owners of it. I just paid my tax bill the other day. I'll tell you, we own it. We own it.
On that note, we're here because we want to let you know now before you waste your time, because the Pines got their name taken off of it. So we are looking to do that before you waste your time. So as he said, we are the owners of it. We are coming early, so we've been dismissed a few times already, telling us that, it's not a done deal, it's not a done deal, we're so far off. And we have seen people commenting on things like, don't worry about it. We are worried about it. That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
I've answered as many questions, we'll answer questions at Councilor Heck's meeting. this is public oral communications. You had your chance to speak, as it says, without debate.
Can we ask one more
No,
person? David Rose?
Buy up the Gloucester engineering spot. For real. Gloucester engineering's empty, buy that, put the goddamn school up there.
There's gonna be a million ideas, but I'm just saying, this, once again, this is not the committee that's gonna make those.
So can I ask a question about the committee that
No,
actually is
we're done.
making this? No, so the school building committee meets at 4 p.m. We can't attend those meetings. So we need to be able to voice our opinions. This is the only opportunity we could
That's fine.
for the ward meeting, so.
And we heard you.
Okay, but is there a way for us to get involved and be included in the school building committee meetings? Are they public meetings?
They're public meetings.
Why are they at 4 p.m.?
Can you make them at 7? We don't even have to know why, but can you change it to 7? Is that a possibility?
That's a good
So
idea.
that we can attend, because we all do work.
We are a working class neighborhood. We
Yeah.
work, we have jobs.
I'll see what I can do. I'm not in a position
Well,
to
voters
just say, wave my wand and make it happen, but I will bring it to the committee.
We would appreciate that, that would help a lot.
So, right, yeah.
Those are I just want to explain, those meetings are working meetings, they're not, there's generally not public comment or, the same forum is here. That doesn't mean that there can't be times when that gets set up in a public meeting, but that's why we're trying to have the meeting with Councilor Hecht, so that there are forums where there is back and forth, as opposed to a public meeting, like we meet to do our business, that the public is here to see.
Right, so they're kind of like a secret meeting?
Not at all, they're public. They're public.
If
It's like
transparency,
if you
that
go
would
to
be
the city
better.
council meeting, you don't have
Transparency and
debate.
minutes posted would be better. Minutes are not able to be found, and I know some committees aren't required to have minutes, but it would be, we've had people request them and haven't received them yet. So minutes posted, transparency would be ideal.
Agreed.
Nobody's looking to run the meetings, and I think everybody here is very respectful, but they're trying to express the passion. And when you do everything sitting in that meeting, you're gonna look at it like a math equation. And this is not a math equation. The numbers may work out perfectly. Oh my God, Green Street looks so good. But you need to factor in this, all these people, they don't have land, they don't have anything. And you need to put that in above the equation. It's just not a math equation.
That's it.
I want to thank the school committee. Officially, this is supposed to be 3 minutes at the podium, and there's no debate or questions, so they've been above and beyond, just to let you know procedurally, they have been.
Yes,
They're
they
very
have.
accommodating. And we'll be in touch.
Yes.
These people are good people, they're trying to do a good job. You're good people trying to do a good job. We're gonna figure this out. So the 29th, be there. Bring everybody. Make sure you tell everybody. Be there. It's gonna be your chance. The architects are gonna be there.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are Good job.
I'm a high school teacher too, but I didn't mention that. So did you.
You had a lot of great points. Joe, well said. Well said. You gotta talk about the community. You know how tight we are.
That's the thing. Everybody's got like switch. Well, and now there's kind of my
I'm going to call the meeting back to order. For those of you who didn't hear, call the meeting back to order.
Liz, we're ready.
I have a short list tonight too.
I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize. We'll put you up next time.
No, it's okay.
I should have had, it would have been good for them to hear. You, and we would have got you out of here a little earlier.
That's okay.
A lot earlier.
I'm patient. My other friend had to go, but she's going to Italy tomorrow, so.
Okay, so,
All my friends are going.
everybody, you're going to Florida, right?
No, not this year.
Okay,
You can come volunteer in my office, I'll be doing
recognition.
Anytime, honey.
If I may.
Yes.
A shout out to 3 of our schools for their wonderful musical productions this year. I had an opportunity to see Mamma Mia at the Gloucester High School on opening night. Nothing short of outstanding.
Can you sing something?
I can, but that will be lower.
I was dancing in the aisle, I saw
You
her
were dancing in the aisle? In all the years that you get a chance to go see these musicals, they're all good. This particular troupe seemed to have an energy level that just took it away. So it was really, really great. I did not get a chance to see the Seussical events, but I have somebody who has can make a comment about the Seussical.
Excellent. Really good.
Good stuff.
Kids, to see the kids at that age level to be able to perform in the way they did, I mean, you could tell they loved it, they were interested in it, they were proud of it. It was great. Absolutely great.
And that's also had their wax museum a couple of Fridays ago as well, where students dressed up as famous biographical figures and pushes imaginary button, and then they would tell you a brief life story about the person they were portraying. It was really terrific. And then third, East Gloucester had its annual production this year. It was Alice in Wonderland.
I saw it.
And they took us to Wonderland. It was absolutely great. So kudos to all of the efforts on the part of the students, the folks that are responsible for helping them to practice, rehearse, prepare, perform. It's just great stuff.
Any other recognitions? Then we'll move on to our related student advisory council. My apologies again. I should have put you up first.
Perfectly okay. I will start with Mamma Mia. It was actually a record-breaking performance for the theater company. There was not a crowd under 200 people. All 4 shows. I think they taught close to 400 people one night. I don't know which night. This is just what my friend's telling me. But they had well over 1,000 people at all of their shows. Well, not all of their shows, altogether. Girls Lacrosse, actually, where my friend just came from. Girls Lacrosse had their first conference win tonight over Saugus. I'm not sure of the score. She didn't tell me. April 25th is the senior banquet, and tickets were being sold for $40. I believe we have upwards of 100 people going. Not quite positive on that number either. And April 26th, the day after, is the junior class's lip sync battle. So you can dress up in costumes with your friends or with faculty
and lip sync to a song, or air guitar.
When is it, April 24th?
April 26th,
Oh,
Friday.
I was gonna say 24th, no school committee, well done.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Any questions? So thank you, and once again.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda anybody would like to remove for discussion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Deliberations on educational issues. We will start with the update on the Vocational Advisory Committee, and Principal Cook is here to update us.
Its usual spot, maybe. Let's see everybody. Thank you. Alright. So, I'll focus on the advisory committee and then provide a few other updates that matters that the committee has been interested in the past really quickly. Just for, so everybody has the general information about advisory committees. The regulations on Chapter 74 programs, such as we have before, Chapter 74 CVTE programs. There's a general advisory committee for all, that oversees all the vocational technical education programs under its control. And the General Advisory Committee should include the chair people from each of the program advisory committees. So those are the stipulations. The school committee has a role of oversight for the General Advisory Committee that I'll talk about in a minute as well. The General Advisory Committee advises the school committee based on adequate and timely information about the planning, operation, and evaluation of the CVTE programs under its control. The General Advisory Committee needs to meet twice a year, and one of the meetings should be with the school committee. So we've talked about, as we move from having established the program advisory committees, that they have elected their chair people. Now we're in a position to have the General Advisory Committee, and that what Dr. Sapphire and I had discussed is that the minutes from that meeting could then be presented to the school committee. As part of that, advising the school committee based on adequate information about planning, operation, and evaluation of the CVT programs. So now the program advisory committees. So the General Advisory Committees is our next step. Each school committee shall appoint program advisory committees. In practice, this responsibility has been delegated to the schools, particularly by the principal to the program teachers, who then become the facilitators of the program advisory committees. The program advisory committee consists of representatives of local businesses, industry, related to the program, organized labor, post-secondary institutions, parents and guardians, students, and then if possible, connections to local apprenticeship programs. So we currently have most of those categories met in most of the programs. The teachers work with me to invite folks. There are a couple places where we're looking for somebody for organized labor, for example. But those committees are well established now, met last spring, met this fall, and this fall elected those chair people who will become members of the General Advisory Committee. So the facilitator is an important role. The facilitator of the advisory committee, the program advisory committee, in most cases is going to be a program teacher. Right? That's the person. They're not on the committee itself, but they're facilitating it. They're the folks who best know the industry, some help and guidance, but they'll be able to contact the people who should be members of the committee, and also help to guide the committee, but aren't members of the committee itself. For the General Advisory Committee, it's the superintendent in our case. It would be the role, or designee, so that's me, doing the work of doing the General Advisory Committee and making that happen for the upcoming meeting, which I'll finish with. The chairperson, like I say, each program advisory committee has a chairperson. That person is also a member of the General Advisory Committee, and then that committee will select a chair of the General Advisory Committee, who will then be the spokesperson of the committee for subsequent meetings. As I say, the most recent meetings in December, chair people were selected for the auto, electrical, carpentry, and machine technology shop. And the plan is for the 2 meetings that we need to have, program advisory meetings that took place in December 20th, 2018. And the program advisory, subsequent program advisory meeting will take place at 6 p.m. on May 15th, with a general advisory committee following at 7 p.m. on May 15th. That's an update on that. Some things the committee's been interested in the past, we just wanted to let you know a little bit about our recruitment efforts for folks into the CDTE program. So we added, in addition to the things we've been doing for the last 2 years since I've been principal, this year we added 2 additional events. On March 14th, we had an open house for 8th grade families at Gloucester High School. We did our open house to coincide with the career and college fair that took place that night, and to coincide with another new event, which was an 8th grade event to help parents choosing their schedules for next year. So, counselors were available to answer those hard questions that parents have. And most of the people who came to that event about choosing courses also went to the shops and also went to the college and career fair. So we were able to, make sure folks got to see a couple different things in that night. It was very well attended. All events were incredibly well attended, and we thought that it was a really good way to get folks into the shops. We also followed up that on the next day, Friday morning, with a meeting at O'Malley where teachers, counselors met with O'Malley students who had either expressed an interest in the CDTE program or who had applied to Essex Tech and had an interview with the regional technical school. So that's how we sort of recruited the students to meet with on March 15th. That was in the middle of their course selection period. So we actually ended up getting approximately 60 new applicants, which if we were able to distribute those properly, it could mean full freshman shops for all 4. Now, in reality, some of those students, if they don't get their first or second choice, may opt not to be in a CDTE program next year, but we're getting much closer to at least initial full capacity for the introductory courses. So that's some of our efforts and preliminary stages of the course selection for next year. Committees will be meeting soon to determine which students get their first choice, second choice, and third choice, according to the regulations that we follow. It's the same process Essex Tech and other schools follow. It's different to be in a position where we're going to be selecting students for the programs than we've been in the past. So that's where we are. Questions?
Tony?
What do the advisory committees consist of? What are the members? What's the membership?
So as I say, so there are people from local businesses. There are folks to the degree we can, a couple of them, 2 of them don't have organized labor at this time, but that's category that we're still looking for. Parents and guardians, we have a student representative on each of them. And some of those categories, there are multiple people. There are, let's see, just looking at that. Currently 5 to 8 members of the program advisory committees currently, depending on which shop. Some are doing more, and continuing to recruit for the categories that we don't currently have, and also recruiting for diversity. We're looking for more women, we're looking for people of color, handicapped folks as well, people with disabilities, are some categories that the state wants you to at least show that you're recruiting to fill those racial linguistic minorities, women, and people with disabilities. So in some cases we've met some of those, and we're still seeking people. It's a tough recruiting work, but once people get into the meetings, you know, when we're establishing regular meetings, it helps keep people coming.
Listen.
First, I want to thank you for this report. I've been waiting a long time for this, and I see we're making good progress and being in compliance with the regulations of having these type of committees in place. What are you doing to recruit members? Me being out in public, I'm a face for vocational just because of my years' experience on the tech, and I often hear what's going on with vocational programs. Community feels like we've given up on them because there's not enough messaging coming out. And I truly believe that that is the reason. You know, we're not showcasing them. We're not out in the community talking about it. So my question is, what are we doing to recruit members to be on these committees? Because I have to believe if we needed someone in carpentry, and I told my husband, call one of your friends, you know, we can make that happen. So what is the process that you're currently doing to entice members of the community to come in and help our kids, because we know Gloucester loves their kids. Yeah. And if someone has a couple hours, they're gonna do it, which in turn generates opportunities to go do work off-site. Right. It gets money coming in because people wanna donate. I mean, it's such an incredible way to help our students fulfill their dreams and get in the offerings of these programs. So what are we doing to get that to happen? I know this is new for you, so my expectations are low, but I'm just trying to build on the momentum because I feel like we have a good thing here. This is the first time I've heard we're almost in compliance instead of being completely out of compliance. So what can we do? What can the school committee do to help you? What can the school do to get the information out to the public as opposed to just talking about building new schools?
So I think currently we've been using the members of the committee themselves to then reach out, facilitated by the teacher of the program at these meetings, then saying, okay, here's some areas that we need to reach out to. Here are some people, who do you know? And so that's how we've grown from 3 or 4 people, some people on there nominally but not really being active, right? And to people actually being more active. So anything, I would put it out there that if people are interested in those, people here, people listening at home, know of people who would be interested in contributing and attending, one of these meetings and maybe even serving on one of these committees, that if they contacted me, then I can put them in contact with the program facilitator who's the teacher in that area. So, jcook@gloucesterschools.com, anybody out there who, so the auto area, the area of electrical, carpentry, and machine technology area. We know that even as we've grown in these committees, that helps with, each new person we get then knows some more people and has a different background and comes from a different place. So that's helped with capturing a few of the, a few of the different kinds of people that we need, but we got to keep going.
I've also had a chance to speak with Ken Reel from the Chamber of Commerce about finding people that can participate in these advisory committees as well. I need to follow up with him and see if he's made any inroads in that regard.
So the schools have a Facebook page, or the Gloucester schools. I know because when I found it, I put it out to every single friend of mine to like it, and I saw a lot of my friends liked it. to me, that would be a good way to put it out there. Jack Porter put a picture up last week of students in class talking about aviation and flights. It was like, wow, you know, finally, a picture of vocational students at Gloucester that everyone can be proud of and see what's going on. We need more of that. And we have that Facebook page, why not use that to our advantage to seek people who want to get involved, but at the same time showing them this is what we need you to be involved in, because the outcome is so great.
And we have put out, just folks know, and sometimes I think a lot of our efforts have been on the internal recruitment this year, to be honest, right, getting more kids in the program. So I have put out videos to the 8th grade families as well, you know, even after we did the fall open house and so on, just reaching out and target, you know, and talking to and getting some videos into the hands of some of those families to look at what are some of the things that are
Invite
possible.
the mayor to your meeting. She'll put it on Facebook. Who has a bigger...
That's true. We'll have it live. What is that?
You know, that would be a way
live
to get some
streamed
messaging
from,
out there.
yeah. I watch things live streamed. I can't be at that meeting. I know where to go to get access to. So yeah, so that's, so expanding that focus. I love the idea of the chamber getting involved too. And also I wanted to say that each of the teachers, they're very mindful of taking pictures, as you saw from Jack, right? And taking pictures and taking videos. It's become a sort of thing whenever we have meetings, like you're taking the videos, or you know. So once we have that, we'll have we're looking for a kind of you know, source of things when we have opportunities to share. That I can ask a teacher, do you have those pictures of that collaborative project you did with the engineering kids? Okay, let's get that out there. Jack having somebody from talk about the aviation, and get that out there. So yeah.
And I would just request either through Jonathan or through the superintendent that when you're having these advisory meetings, let the school committee know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, let's get talking about
There is a
this.
school committee liaison that is part of that general advisory committee, correct?
That's right, yes, through, so what will happen is after the meeting on the 15th, a school committee member to, yeah.
All right, so I want to be that person.
She's the person.
Okay, May 15th,
I'll just put it in my calendar.
7 p.m. You can come at 6 too, and tour the other groups as well.
I'll be there as well.
Okay.
Joel had a question.
So I think it'd be helpful if you could also just share with the committee the various social media accounts that exist. Like for instance, I know on Instagram I follow the cabinet making, and you know, course selection was happening a few weeks ago, and I was talking to some of the rising seniors. They said, you know, they had a blog. I said, "What cabinet making?" And then I pulled the Instagram account. I said, "Wouldn't you love to like make some of this stuff and come home with this?" And so like 5 people put it down there for me because it was so. I happen to know about that one. I don't know if there's any other Instagram accounts that I'm missing, but it'd be nice if we all know all the accounts that are out there, just so we have an idea of what's being shared.
I think, you know, a lot of the teachers being entrepreneurs, doing things that I'm
Twitter, LinkedIn.
We do need a place where all those things can exist, and I can put that on the website. Really need to make sure I ferret out everybody who's maybe doing some of this for their students and so on, but I might not even be.
I might even suggest the superintendent's going to like a vocational program.
Love it.
Highly rated television program. So
And your wrenches.
Right.
Okay, are there any further questions, or should we move on to the advanced placement and the SAT results?
All right. Sapphire will, okay, great. So this is school performance on state and national assessments. So we got MCAS, we got PSAT, we got SAT and AP. I know you've seen MCAS already, but I wanted to begin by giving folks a sense of some of the shifting demographics at Gloucester High School. So this isn't the overall population, but this is the 2017 MCAS to the 2018 MCAS. Students with disabilities remain pretty much the same. Big increase in socioeconomically disadvantaged students, big increase in English language learners, to say the least. We've talked about this before, but I think this is also useful in the context of this other data, the AP and all these other things. And the high needs students, another significant increase. High needs combines each of these categories, but only counts the student once, even if they fit all three categories. Right? So that's the context for the rest of the data. And as you know, over here we've seen a decrease last year in some of our MCAS numbers. We've put a lot of things in place, particularly in math and in ELA, and ELA combining with a social studies class to take joint ownership over literacy to improve those numbers, and we expect to see those improvements this year. But that's some of the context for the other numbers too. So then we come to PSAT and SAT. So that we know what we're talking about here. The PSAT provides some practice and evaluation data that helps students prepare for the SAT. We offer it during the school day at Gloucester High School, thanks to the budget that you all approve, and that was a priority we've been able to maintain. The SAT is an independent assessment. It's not part of any governmental agency. And it measures knowledge, skills, and understandings that research has identified as most important for college and career readiness. You may remember that the SAT has recently had an overhaul so that it's more related to the skills students actually need in college. And you'll see that reflected in a moment as well. All right, so the PSAT. You see that the Gloucester High School has had some good performance here in the English evidence-based reading and writing. That's what ERW stands for. We are 18, our mean is 18 points over the state mean for 10th graders and 34 points over the state mean for 11th grade students. You can see 1 point over in math, 24 points over for the 11th graders in math. In addition to that, we can now use PSAT benchmark data as part of our overall data analysis. That's a new feature. Ms. Carlson has made that happen. And 113 students, 70 female, 43 male, took the PSAT in October. In our school, we have a somewhat unusually higher number of male students than female students, and yet we see this number opposite here for PSAT, which is an area of improvement for the school, encouraging our young men. If we can kind of get this up towards that number, we'll be much closer to where we would want to be with the number of students taking the PSAT. We'd really like to get to 200 students in PSAT. So the new SAT, this is the second year of school data, so we finally have something to compare to last year to this year of the new SAT. There's a bigger emphasis on the meaning of words and context rather than just knowing some vocabulary randomly appearing. You know the word in a sentence, and you can use context clues to figure out what it means, right? That's more of what we do in real life than a random word and do you know what this word means. There's more about how the choice of words affects the tone, right? So, which is again more realistic. We heard some of that earlier this evening, and we practice it all the time at this, choosing our words carefully for the intended effect. The essay is now optional. Students get to decide based on, does the school that I'm applying to, do the schools that I'm applying to require the essay? The essay is a bit longer. I taught the 25-minute version. It was a bit absurd. This is a much more realistic time to develop an idea. Now sub-scores are provided to help us plan, provided to everybody, so we can really analyze that data more like MCAS data. So this is how we do it. You can see from our mean score on the writing is stayed about the same, and this is consistent with the state average. Comprehension is the first score, analysis is the second, and then your use of communication conventions is the third score, and that's out of 8. You see that we've had some improvement from over the 2 years in the evidence-based reading and writing, and some improvement in mathematics as well.
What's the state average in those?
The state average is, I think I wrote this down in the notes here. The state average, we are 19 points below the state average for the evidence-based reading and writing, 17 points below the state average in math. However, we are 6 points over the national average in reading and writing, and 15 points over the national average in math. So we got a really good state, but we are below the state average and above the national average. All right, let's see. All right, so as you know, there's some benefits to the AP program. I didn't add one that I'll mention. So students can get credit for courses. Students can be moved above, not given credit, but start at a 200 level instead of a 100 level for a particular course. We also know that, particularly in the sciences, even if the school doesn't accept credit in a biology or chemistry area, students do so much better in those courses if they've taken AP in high school. And then the fourth is that this is one of our strongest areas on the new state report card. It's one of the areas Gloucester High School's done the best, so we're happy that they've included that data. And in the next slide, you can see some of what we offer. Both in STEM areas and in the humanities this year we have added, you won't see this in the data yet, but we did add environmental science for this year. So next year when I'm doing this, we'll have environmental science data. Next year when I'm doing this, we won't have world history or economics data. We had too few students sign up for those courses to run them this year, but we did have large numbers in both of the Englishes. And we know from our early application data for next year that we're going to have a big increase in the number of students taking U.S. history at the 10th grade level, which is really exciting because it really expands the number of students. We're also, 10th grade students will also be taking the computer science course next year. So it expands the opportunities of students to take AP level classes. And the next slide. That is not a misprint. The number of total number of students taking exams between my first year as principal and last year increased by 39 students, and 238 Gloucester High School students took exams, or the 129 students took 238 exams last year. And we improved, so we're having more students taking the exams, and yet, the percentage of students with the so-called passing scores of 3, 4, or 5 increased. And our overall school numbers, we have fewer students in the school overall, but we've been able to increase the AP numbers at the same time. It's something that we're really proud of in the school, and that we're able to maintain that kind of success rate, even as we're having non-traditional students who in the past would not have been taking AP tests now taking them. We're really proud of being able to do that. So the next slide.
Excuse me. Is there a state average for those 3 to 5s that you had?
No. Yeah, they don't do that. The state. I didn't prepare this because we had the only place the school profile page. If you look at the AP scores, they do compare U.S. history numbers. We haven't had enough students taking the AP U.S. history test to have that comparison. So I'll have that next year, though, when we have 20 to 30 students taking it, we'll be up there again. Yeah. So, all right, the awards. This is pretty cool because these are great numbers. It's very dramatic. So we had 15 students score 3 or higher on at least 3 exams and therefore qualify for AP Scholar. And you'll see as Dr. Sapphire clicks the remaining here, you can see how that's an improvement over prior years.
Okay,
Okay, then these are students who had 3 or higher on at least 4 exams and had an average score of at least 3.25. Last year we didn't have anybody in this category. And as you see, last year we had 6 students with a score of 3 or higher on at least 4 exams with an average of at least 3.25.
Do you know how we compare to the DAC schools? Like, are we in?
I don't, so yeah, they don't.
I don't even know that they were.
I know, they don't give us that data. Like I was just saying to Joel about the only thing they compare is the AP US history that I've been able to find. So I'm not sure how we compare on these measures. All right, so next is one more category, I believe. Yep, Scholar with Distinction. 3 or higher on these 5 exams with an average score of at least 3.5 is very high. And we have 4 students, 3 students, why is it? I was typing crazy. 3 students with this mark, and you'll see that compares to 4 last year and in the recent years, those other numbers. So that's the highest designation for students. So we've been able to expand the total number of students, and we've been able to either maintain or increase our number of students who are receiving those kinds of distinctions. Vastly increase the number of students. If you look at the percentage of students getting 3, 4 went up, but because we also increased the total number of students who will be able to go to college with that kind of AP background greatly increased. We expect that this year, the current year, the students will be taking assessments in May. We expect a decrease in the total number of tests, but still, if you look at the overall trend, it's going to still be above where we were 3 or 4 years ago in the total number. Last year was a banner year. We hope to get back there in the following year, especially with some of the changes we've made, for example, in the U.S. history course and in the computer science course to get more kids into those sections. Any other questions? Or?
I just have a comment. My son's a freshman, and culturally, it's really interesting to see how they want to be assigned to the AP classes. They want to take the honors. They want to do the more challenging level. They're not saying, no, it's not. That's too much work. They're proud if they get recommended to be in certain levels. So I think it's a really terrific trend that, challenging yourself, even though you might, it's easier to get the 100 or whatever in one level, you can get less than that in the higher, but you're learning more. So I think culturally you've made a huge difference that way.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of, so along those lines, I have a lot of course waiver requests to pour through now. What those are is a student is recommended for a CP level class and they want to take the honors. Those are pouring in this week. This is the deadline for it, where students are they have to write a letter advocating for going to the next level, and then I consult with the teachers on whether we think that's something we would approve. So it's really good to see the number of waivers coming in for higher level. Thank you.
Great job.
All right, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
And we'll now move on to the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you. It's good that you're here, James. The first item on the agenda is the GHS turnaround plan. The members of the GHF staff and administration met this past Friday. Mr. Bach and I had an opportunity to attend as well. The name of the consulting group that came in to do a site survey, turnaround site survey, is the name of Schoolworks. They're part of the Institute for Strategic Leadership and Learning. And they went through their results. They had been in the building for a day or two. They had done some focus groups. They'd done some classroom observations, and then presented a report which focused in on 4 fundamental areas of the high school: leadership, shared responsibility, and professional collaboration, intentional practices for improving instruction, providing student-specific supports and instruction to all students, and then school culture and climate. There were a couple of determinations in each of these particular categories. The team then had an opportunity to prioritize some of them, since they can only focus on so many at a time. And they also ran through a couple of processes involving root cause analysis, which is basically like when we were kids, you ask 20 questions, why, and then you get the answer and you ask why, so that you hopefully can get to what quite literally is a root cause, and then begin to identify what your strategy is going to be in order to address that particular issue. So they're off and running. The due date for this to be completed is sometime in June. Gloucester High School is getting a late start because it took quite a while for this particular agency, Schoolworks, to get to the high school, because of the other schools that they have responsibility for as well. We have also are in the process of bringing a facilitator from the Center for Collaborative Education, the same fellow who has been working with members in our district for the ECLC, the Essex County Learning Community, and we've had some conversations with him. They will help to facilitate and also actually write the report, which is good because they'll be taking the information that the team provides, but they know what the report should look like, how it should be shaped, and be able to cultivate it for us for submission. So that process is happening. Yesterday, some of us had an opportunity, I know Mr. Favaza was there, James as well, the annual induction ceremony into the GHS Interact Club. The Interact Club is the high school extension of Rotary International, and Rotary itself is dedicated the world over to do good things, to help poor and ravaged areas and across the various continents, and to provide food, provide medicine, eradicate polio. I mean, there's no end to the list of the kinds of things that this international organization does. The exposure for our young students, our young people, to this kind of service really is absolutely outstanding. And so there was a luncheon yesterday, and Mr. Clark was the keynote speaker, did a fabulous job. And we now have a number of students who are now part of this Interact Club, and we expect to see good things from them.
And Linwood catered it, right?
I'm sorry?
Linwood catered it, I was told.
I'm not sure who did it. What'd you have?
Figured that.
I have the chicken stuffing wrap.
I had the grilled vegetables, so pretty good.
Grilled vegetables.
There you go. So. And the chocolate chips.
Yeah.
And we danced.
And we danced. To Sweet Caroline because it was opening day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
True story.
That's true.
I know.
The House budget is actually the House Ways and Means Committee did release its proposed budget today, and I have a bit of a report here from the Massachusetts Municipal Association. In effect, what they're saying is that the legislature is looking hard at the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations, that they are increasing some of the funding for local school aid, but that and that there are many bills, about 17 bills before the Joint Committee on Education, but they do anticipate trying to increase local aid for Chapter 70, but they do not anticipate being able to implement changes to the Chapter 70 Foundation formula for next year's budget. The State House came out with a news service article today proposing bigger increases in K through 12 education, but signaled that they're not likely to adopt changes as to how the state fund public schools by the time the new state budget takes effect. The House Ways and Means Committee is suggesting $54 million above the governor's version for local aid, and about $275 million more than the state's allocating this fiscal year in total aid for districts. They're setting up some special programs, $16.5 million to support low-income students, $218 million in new Chapter 70 aid, a $2 million initiative to improve health and social care services in schools, and $16.5 million reserve fund for low-income student supports. So there is activity. There was a major public hearing 2 Fridays ago at the State House involving all of the considerations and recommendations of the FBRC, as well as some discussions of those 17 or so bills that are before the legislature as well. And we'll stay tuned to see what the final numbers are. Obviously, the Senate now has to kick in and make their recommendations as well. We will be hosting a Student Government Day on May the 28th, thanks to Councillor Holmgren and Councillor Gilman, along with James and Rich Francis from the Social Studies Department. We will now have an opportunity for students who are interested to shadow city councilors, the mayor. I understand you're already reserving 2 shadowers. You're the shadowee. City department heads and of course members of the school committee are invited to participate as well. It means spending a couple of hours on May the 28th showing and explaining what your particular role, or department head, or the mayor, or anyone else, what their particular role is in the city. At 6:15, there'll be a reception for all participants. I presume it's going to be in and around the Kairos, students, their parents, elected municipal officials, community members, former mayors, school administration, school committee members, all prior to the city council meeting. League of Women Voters will be there as well, and at the start of the meeting, the council president Lundberg will ask student participants to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, and then after an introduction, they will ask each of the participants to spend 1 minute just to, what was your take-home message? Was there something that you could highlight that you learned and experienced? Well, there would be there could be 15, 20, 25 kids,
Why are they doing it at a city council meeting night then?
Well, I think because it coordinates well with Student Government Day, and the City Council is a good, strong part of our student government, so it's a nice culminating event.
In the day, they just did it on their own night. So the shadowers actually sat in the seats.
And I think
at
that
the
you
dais.
should be part of the planning committee next
But
time.
that was a big part of it, is you actually conducted a city council meeting, you actually conducted a school committee meeting. And you actually had, yes, they actually did it.
They did. When I was a city
Yeah.
councilor, I had one, and they actually sat down first. We were behind them. They sat down first, started the city council meeting like they would, and then they adjourned and we jumped in.
Right. Well, we're trying to get this thing off the ground
Uh-huh.
this year, and there has been some, and I like the idea, it's a great idea. And we're also talking about the possibility next year of holding a mock city council meeting at the school, or possibly at Kairos, using student council representatives, president, vice president, so on and so forth, asking the council president to perhaps act as the person who was facilitating, and then hold an actual, that's kind of a contradiction, actual mock city council meeting involving ideas and issues that are relevant to the students.
Right. And then having this was a way to expand, we're talking about ways of expanding the impact of Student Government Day beyond the kids who are already interested in government. Yeah. Right. And so by having some peers debating an interesting topic, using the methods and means of the city council, and then having as the audience the students who are taking U.S. history classes, we thought we could expand the reach of this, and then what happens on stage, right, in the meeting would then be the subject to subsequent lesson, preceding and subsequent lesson by the U.S. history teachers, be incorporated into the curriculum more. So, and this is our first foray into getting at this question of civics in the moment, and again, getting the government day beyond just those kids who are already interested in government.
Great, thank you. And last item, Take Back the Night, the annual vigil, if you will, against domestic violence and sexual assault will take place tomorrow night, beginning at 6:30 at City Hall. There'll be some introductions, some speeches and such. And then there'll be a bit of a march that goes down from City Hall, Pleasant Street to Main Street to Short to Church, and then to the Unitarian Universalist Church as well for final comments and such. So it would be great, anybody who is interested in coming out and supporting this extremely important event, then they are more than welcome to do so. It begins at 6:30 at City Hall. And James, is that is orange the color for Take Back the Night?
So that's the gun violence awareness.
Gun violence,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if there's a color. I will be there, then I'll see.
Yeah, good.
Usually domestic violence is purple.
Purple?
Just saying.
Yeah, good, thank you.
And at 6:30, it says 5:30 in your document, but 6:30.
I don't know now, because, let me check.
Mayor, is it 6:30 tomorrow night? Take Back the Night?
6:30 at City Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll go marching down Main Street.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Thank you.
Was just checking some of it, and she said 6, but that's when we have to make that.
I've got this is from Sonny Robinson.
Yeah,
coordinates-
6:30 starts the March 6th
6:30
meeting to be
assembly
there.
at,
I only asked because you're 5:30 in your report.
So we're gonna be there early.
Perfect.
We're gonna take back the night.
Yeah. Oh, any questions of the superintendent? Do we have a motion to accept the superintendent's report?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we'll move on to, there were no committee meetings. So we'll move on to the budget.
Can I just, while we still have James here before he leaves, we have that, there was questions on the DECA field trip. Should we make sure that those questions get answered while James is here?
Yeah, soup to nuts, the participant is going to be escorted by a staff member, beginning of the flight all the way through.
Was that the only question?
Yeah, it's a question.
Another question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's
it in a nutshell.
Okay.
That's a very legitimate question.
Yeah, it's very good, so, yeah.
Just wanted to make sure while James was still here.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's no question.
Well prepared.
Was there any clarity on the procedure of getting the forms filled out?
We saw that James signed twice.
No. We'll take a look at it though.
Yeah. Okay, so we will move on to the budget. And as you know, we had we passed a budget for a public hearing in the amount of $43,728,214. We had a public hearing, and it is now our job to make any adjustments that we might want to make to that number and send it on to the administration, who will then do their magic and find all the money for us, right? So, I would like to propose that we reduce that number by $250,000.
Can I ask why?
And yes, I will explain
Oh,
why.
sorry, I thought you were gonna put it
Just
for
do
motion
it, just
now.
do it. No, in our this year's budget of the number that we used for healthcare, there is still a little bit more than $250,000 unencumbered. So the number that was used after we've looked at all of the increases in the different plans, added a percentage on to the number that was, like I said, $250,000, it's still in it. So I'm going to propose, because as we all know, we're probably not going to get the $43,728,214, that we reduce that bottom line by $250,000, remove the $250,000 from the healthcare appropriation line item, and submit a budget of $43,578,214. This is still a 3.67% increase. But I just think that it could put us in a better position with the administration and the council to make an effort to bring that number down close to what we're going to probably get.
You gonna make a motion?
And there is no, if by chance information comes in later between now and when we finally approve the budget, we can make some adjustments in that. But for the moment, it doesn't take any of the things that we've added out of the budget. And it's money that basically we normally might be able to use to prepay out of district. But I think that we could forego that with this amount of money. So I would like to make a motion that we approve a budget of $43,578,000.
Excuse me, I think that the 43,728, take away 250 is actually 43,478,214. That's what I got.
All right, 43,478,214, excuse me.
Second.
Okay.
And what's the percent increase?
It's less than the 3.7 I said.
I
No, it is, it's,
So it's 367 or something?
yeah, 3.6, it's still 3.67. I had that right.
Okay.
And it's been moved and seconded. Do we have a discussion?
I have a question. So you're basically saying that given all the best estimating that came into this year's budget, enough things changed where we are not projected to spend the entire budget by that amount? Is that?
Well, we've frozen the budget, and as the chairman has mentioned, there is some differential in the health insurance because of the shuffling around and who's taking on what medical insurance and so on and so forth.
I just want to say that I'm going to support this motion to reduce the budget because I think it's all expected by us. We're not going to get the amount that is going forward, so there will be a reduction in some capacity somewhere for whatever reason that we decide when we vote, when we get the final decision in June. I think the fact that we do prepay the amount of money that we do every year for a SPED gives us that flexibility. So I'm going to support the motion knowing that the hard work is going to happen in June, not necessarily now. But at the same time, I think we've done our job as school committee members and advocated for the needs of the district in our presentation. But we all know we're going to get less and we'll make the best of it.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm comfortable to reduce it by that amount. That if our prepay at the end of next year is less than this year, then it's next year. It's not now, and hopefully that will help us not make any other, any cuts of particular things we know we need in terms of the additions to the budget.
Any further discussion? Need a roll call on this? Roll call vote?
Mr. Favazza?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
That's not it's up or down.
I know it's up or down. I'm gonna stick with my no.
Okay. Chairman vote?
Yes.
It has a
Ms. Prince?
Yes.
It has a majority.
Mayor Taken?
Present.
And Catherine Lancy?
Yes.
So it passes 4 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 present. And we will move on to the next item. Oh, and we need a motion to forward that number to the FY 2020 budget to the mayor.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. We have 3 grants to approve. The first is from the Gloucester Education Foundation to Gloucester High School for the You Can Do It music program in the amount of $2,500. I assume this is for ukuleles? Ukuleles. And I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Do we get a presentation?
Can we get it? Well, they don't have them yet.
Once again.
Okay, next year.
Okay.
Gotta learn.
Bring them in at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, they do ukuleles at Plum Cove, I believe.
Yeah.
East Gloucester. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Big yellow school bus grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council to O'Malley Innovation Middle School for the amount of $250. And I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. From the Dusky Foundation, for the Essex County Community Foundation to Gloucester High School Athletic Department in the amount of $1,000, and this is given in the name of the GFAA.
So moved.
Second.
And is there any discussion?
Do we send thank you notes?
We do not as a rule, but we do on direction. Do you want to send a thank you?
I just think we should have a policy that when people give us money, we say thank you.
Okay, well,
Just,
policy is a big deal. You know, we can make that policy, but if you want to just
I think it's good practice.
Yeah, I understand it's practice, so we can send thank you notes. It's usually done
Right now,
just like that.
I know, but it just
Okay,
would be
but
nice to
it should.
have something signed by the chair on behalf of
Yeah.
the committee saying thank you for thinking of us.
But I also think that if we make a policy and just have it automatic, then it's kind of
Absolutely, yeah.
loses.
Yeah.
It's.
No, yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We have two out-of-district, out-of-state field trips to approve. The first one is the aforementioned GHS DECA International Care and Development Conference in Orlando, Florida, from Friday, April 26th to Tuesday, May 1st, 2019. And this is for one student who will be accompanied by a staff member.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And the annual grade 5 elementary schools, all grade 5 elementary schools, to Nature's Classroom in Freedom, New Hampshire, from Tuesday, May 28th to Friday, May 31st, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on, very little has happened other than the setting up of a lot of neighborhood meetings. There will be one on Monday after we come back from vacation, and there'll be Councilor Heck's Ward 2 meeting a week after that. Nothing is met because we're waiting on the title searches, so other than a lot of noise, we haven't not done anything except listen to people.
I think it should also be said that the architects have pointed out that they are behind their expected schedule, so that impacts things, meetings with the MSBA and all that, so just so that people are aware.
The critical thing that impacts, or may impact, is when we would have a vote on the debt exclusion. Because if it gets too late, it'll run into the national election, at which point you'll have a whole lot of people voting that have no idea what they're voting about. The idea was to have it a standalone election.
While we're talking about the update, I'm wondering if there is an ability for someone, preferably the chairman, to put some sort of article in the newspaper, pretty much summing up what you said tonight, because clearly the information that's out there is not accurate, and it's causing a lot of unnecessary stress, I think, in people's lives right now, when they think something's gonna happen immediately, but then learn it's at least a year away or more. So I think maybe getting something published might be helpful, because another reason is people see this on our agenda and they think that we're talking about it at every committee and making decisions. So I just think that the more transparency we can have with the information that's accurate, the better. So that's just a suggestion.
Yes,
to the building
I will
committee.
do that.
And I agree with having the meetings later than 4 o'clock.
You done?
I'm done.
I looked at the city's website and the school's website, I couldn't find any minutes for that, or meeting postings or anything.
And we're supposed to get them.
There's no
here,
East
too.
Gloucester building committee on anything.
fine, and I need to look at it.
Just wanted to let
No
you-
question about it. But the OPM is supposed to be sending these to staff, so it's supposed to be put them on the website, it's not happening.
And I'd asked that they become part of the school committee packet too, we haven't seen any minutes and
I will get on
I
it
think we
tomorrow.
got them once.
Okay, it is on our website, but it's not.
It's not as up to date as it should be, and I did send a message
Should be on the
to-
city's website anyway, it's a city committee.
Okay, is there any,
Yeah, I sent it to the clerk.
I would just mention, it's not on here, but the last night at the city council on their consent agenda, they forwarded a loan order to be reviewed by B&F for the money that would be required to replace the field house floor. So, and some asbestos abatement at Plum Cove.
In the boiler room.
In the boiler room, yes. Okay.
Also, again, if I may, I think also, you know, tonight we heard, that we've heard over and over again, is the deferred maintenance, but just, we need, maybe, again, needs to be communicated on how this administration has really stepped up the maintenance with the DPW. That's really done a lot. We're taking care of the buildings now, you know, as best it can be. A lot of damage is done, but the buildings are much better maintained than they ever were before.
It's a joint effort. I mean, you look at your budget, some of the things, but, you know, we had extra and we're putting it towards that, and you guys just cut your budget down. It's a joint effort. We have old schools and we're doing the best we can, and we are repairing them, we are maintaining them one thing at a time. And, you know, sometimes we have a little extra and we're gonna fix the canal and we're gonna fix a lot of things, and we don't have to build a new high school. So, I mean, we're working on all those things. And that's what happens. We can't keep hearing that we're not maintaining 50 years ago, okay? None of us were here. I was in the school, probably breaking the school. I mean, the fact I was 7. So, but we are doing something now, and every time we do, we work together and we get it repaired and we do things.
Okay, anything else before we go into executive session? Okay, we're going to be going into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations with the Gloucester Teachers Association, to discuss the discipline or dismissal of complaints or charges brought against an employee, and for the purpose of approving tentative agreements with the crossing guards and for the noon supervisors. And I so move. And we need a.
Right, and the additional.
The GTA negotiation.
I said that.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
And we may come out to approve the
And we
contract.
may come out to approve the contract, but other than that, we'll just adjourn. So we need a roll call vote.
Mr. Favazza?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Chairman Pope?
Yes.
Ms. Prince?
Yes.
Mayor Taven?
Yes.
Mr. Clancy?
Yes.
Okay, we will have a 5-minute recess while KBN TV, I keep calling it Studio 1623. I get it wrong every time. That's just samples there.